Welcome everybody, Matthew from Captive Audience Comics here. Today I want to talk about the question that we see most often on our page when we're talking about grading, on subreddits, on all of the groups. CGC versus CBCS. Should I get graded with one or the other? What are the benefits of one company over the other? And will I get the same return on my comics? Now, a lot of times people that have money heavily invested in one of those companies or the other will have a strong opinion, and their opinion will be directly related to how much money they have invested with that company. That makes sense. If you've spent thousands and thousands of dollars with the company, you're not going to turn around and say, oh yeah, no, we shouldn't use that company anymore. We should use somebody else. Now, we sell CGC and CBCS slabs. We grade CGC and CBCS slabs. We're an authorized dealer for CGC and CBCS, so we don't have a particular horse in the race for either company. When we're pricing our slabs for sale using GPA for comics or eBay sold values or auction sales, we price our CGC comics and our CBCS comics at the same level, and they both sell. Now, I will say sometimes the CBCS ones will take longer to sell, but they do sell. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, why are you grading the comic in the first place? If you're grading for personal protection, it has sentimental value to you, you're keeping it for your personal collection. Maybe it has a signature that's not witnessed and not verified. Maybe you just don't want the book to get in any worse condition than it is already. In any of those cases, either company is going to be fine. They're both going to provide the same level of service, more or less. Grading is, in my opinion, is extremely comparable between the two companies. Quality control, sometimes with CGC, because of their volume, isn't as good. CBCS seems to have a better quality control, but CGC will fix problems. Like if you get a slab and there's a problem, they'll just fix it. They won't. That process is very easy. So for the personal collector, I would say CGC versus CBCS is merely a matter of personal preference. I will we'll show you the cases after, and we'll demonstrate differences in the case design, which could also influence your choices. Now, if you're looking at pure resale investment value, you want to get a book slabbed, increase its value, and sell it. Some people call that flipping. We just call that business. CGC will sell quicker for the same grade book. So if you had two, I don't know, I'm going to show you a Zatanna book, but if I had two Zatanna number ones and 9.8, the CGC one is going to sell faster than the CBCS one. If you wanted to sell the CBCS one in the same time frame, you'd probably have to reduce the price a bit. Otherwise, you have to sit on it a bit longer for it to sell. So for people that need to sell books quickly and maximize return on value, CGC is still the better choice. Now, that being said, that gap has been closing for the past few years and has been closing faster since the Slabgate issue at CGC, with proof finally coming out that slabs are being tampered with, labels are being exchanged, books are being moved around, and really there was no way to know how many of those had done. CGC tended to list saying, oh, it only affects these books. There's no possible way that could be true. For years and years, people have been speculating that that's been happening based on results of books that they've bought. I can't imagine if one person, out of all the millions of books that they've graded, one person figured it out, dollars to donuts, that other people were doing it too. Because where there's money involved in a collectible with an authentication, people are going to try to scam that system. So let's go ahead and take a look at differences in actual case design, which could also influence your choice. So let me pull this up. I'm going to show you first. This is a modern CGC slab. Okay, when I say modern, not only is the book a modern, but it's a new case. Okay, so I'm actually going to take it out of the slab bag for you guys, because there's a couple things that I want to talk about that might push you one way or the other. So there's been a lot of work done recently, basically testing the various slabs to see how, you know, which slabs are more secure, which slabs are harder to tamper with, the security features, all that kind of stuff. And the CGC slabs leave a lot to be desired compared to the CBCS slab on a security front. Okay, so if you're worried about, you know, is the book inside the case that I'm buying the actual book that it's supposed to be? Has it been tampered with? The CBCS case is much more difficult to tamper with. I'll talk about some of those, you know, some of those features of the cases, and credit out to Rick at Immaculate Comics, who's done a great job showing the various features and security enhancements of the various slabs and how hard they are to tamper with. Okay, so the CGC slab is 2 pieces of acrylic with a seam in the middle. Okay, and if you can actually, you know, stick your fingernail in there. Okay, and these 2 pieces of acrylic are pressed together, and there's a post in each corner. My camera, to see if I can get my camera to focus here. I'll try to get my camera to focus on this for you. There you go. And you'll see there's a post inside there. Okay, right in there, a little plastic post, and that post sits inside so you got the post, it sits inside a receiver hole. It's compressed under pressure in a and there's a sonic weld that is on the side here. You can see how the plastic is kind of discolored here, okay, in that spot. The sonic weld, okay, which is supposed to keep all this together. But this is literally just 2 flat pieces of plastic touching each other like this, okay? And of course, the flaw with that is that if you wedge tool in here, for example, when we crack slabs to CPR them, literally all we do is stick a flathead screwdriver in here, and I expand the gap a bit, and then I stick another flathead in, I slide it along, and I pop the case open. And sometimes these cases pop open so clean, the posts are undamaged. Now, when this thing is sonically sealed, the posts are supposed to like soften up against the inner well, and so that can't happen. And they're supposed to snap off if you try to force the case open. Many times that never happens. I get these cases in 2 even halves. I could put any book I wanted back in there and just sandwich it back in. You would never know. And I'm not trying to take a case apart without damaging it. It's just sometimes they pop apart so easily. Also, the labels in the top here in CGC, they're not attached any way inside of this space. They're just floating in here. So if you open up a gap anywhere in here, you can slide that label out, okay? So these cases are very easy to tamper with. Now, one of the reasons why CGC finally decided to give free grader's notes to everybody with a scan code is so you can go to their site and you can read the flaws, and then if you're buying a book, you can look at it and say, oh, it says there's a crease here, or there's an indent or a colored rub or whatever, and you can look at your book and decide if it's the case. Problem is, that higher grade books or books with internal flaws, like maybe a missing Marvel value stamp, you won't know because you won't be able to see it. And in a 9.8, it's going to be like, well, if I put a 9.6 in here, those books are so close, you'll just assume that the grader was being a little soft that day, okay? So CGC cases, much easier to tamper with, but you can sell them quicker, which means if you're in the business of turning around slabs as fast as you can, then CGC is still the company to go with in the short term anyways. They keep talking about how they're going to have some big changes coming. They haven't exactly said what those are. I don't know if they're going to be a case enhancements or something, but up to now, there's still everything new coming out is still, coming out in the same cases that are super easy to compromise. Now, CBCS. A couple reasons why you might want to choose CBCS. Unwitnessed signature verification. If you have a book that's been signed You're like, oh, I got it signed, but I didn't pay someone to witness it, and it's got a signature on it. CBCS has in-house signature verification through Beckett. Okay, so it goes to Beckett first, and Beckett is basically the industry standard for signature verification. They can verify that signature, then send it for grading, and you'll still get a signature series label. CGC will not do that. If they haven't witnessed it, you get a label qualifier. It just says writing on cover. Okay, that's their whole jam at CGC is having artists and having you pay to watch the artists do stuff. It's a great business model. I wish I had that business model because it's just a way to print money. Okay, but CBCS has signature verification through them. The other thing I wanted to say is, and this isn't so much about the valuation of the slabs, but on the submission side, CBCS allows you to mix all different kinds of slabs under submission. You can send modern and vintage and high value and like whatever you want on one submission form, one paperwork like account fee when you're submitting it, and you can have it all come back in one box. CGC, every one of those categories of books has to be a separate submission form, separate administration fee for everyone, and unless you do some pretty good paperwork on your side and talk with them when they receive them, they're all coming back in separate boxes, and you're paying, 2, 3, 4 times shipping cost. So it's something to keep in mind. You can get them to combine return shipments, but there's a tedious process on how to do that. Now, CBCS. A lot of people complain about their labels. It's funny because of all the things they complain about, they're not complaining about like the grading or the cases. Of the label's boring. And I kind of agree. It is kind of a boring label. But I'm telling you, all you're paying for is you're paying for the number up here. As long as that number is on the label, that's what you paid for. That's to have a grading company say this is worth whatever. Okay. Now, a couple of extra features, and it might be hard to see in the CBCS slab, is that the actual label is, when they seal this case, you might not even, well, you can kind of see it. There are posts in behind. See how there's like a post here and a post here. There's extra posts. Those posts are holding the labels in place. That's so that you can't open the side and sort of slide the label out. The other thing with these cases is that these are more of a clamshell style. And it's kind of hard to demonstrate. But the CGC case butts up edge to edge like this, okay? The CBCS case has the one part of the acrylic, and then the other part of the acrylic sits over top and goes around the edges. So the actual acrylic thickness, and you can kind of see it from the back. You can see this section here that's kind of a little cloudier all the way around. This is like the exterior wall that fits around the inner well, okay? So you actually have like a double layer of acrylic here. And then they have these, in the bottom, they have these, they're almost like spring clips that go inside, okay? This makes this case way harder to tamper with. I cannot open, plus it's got all the posts and everything. The same thing, it's got the posts in here. I cannot open a CBCS case without it being obvious that like I've damaged the case. Usually what I do with a CBCS case is I shatter this corner up here. And once I shatter that corner, I can work a tool all the way in, and then I can basically snap apart the case. There's no way that you can fake that. Now, Rick Morgan has shown some ways that somebody really ingenious with a lot of engineering tools and like lasers and stuff can do it, but that's not something you got to worry about for the average Joe. Another nice feature about the CBCS cases is they have like a little ridge right here, okay, this little raised ridge, and the top of the case is recessed, and that ridge sits in the recess. So if you want to vertically stack these, they like nest into each other. So when they're stacked, they make a very solid stack. So from a security point of view, the CBCS slab, much more secure, way more secure than the CGC slab. So if that's your main concern, then you should go with CBCS. Just keep in mind that if you are doing it for a business purpose or selling purpose, it could take you longer to sell the same slab as with the CGC. Now, things to watch out for in tampering. Now we're going to talk about the CGC slab for the tampering because the CBCS slabs, it's very apparent if they've been tampered with. So we're not going to get too much into that, but I am going to show you a couple of things that you're going to want to watch out for on the CGC slab. One of the drawbacks of the CBCS slabs is because they are a little bit thicker, they're harder to get into the bags. I just split that bag, putting it back in, but I'll replace that one later. You always got lots of spare slab bags around when you're working with slabs on the regular. So on the CGC slabs, the way, if somebody was going to tamper with this, they're only going to do it in one of two ways. They're going to slide a tool on the edge, and they're going to basically try to move that tool around and separate the case without it cracking. Or they're going to warm up the corner post with the heat gun until they can basically pop the case apart. So what you want to look for is the corner posts, and I'll see if I can get it to zoom through the plastic bag for you guys. That corner post that's in there, if you look at that corner post very closely, you can look and you can see if it looks like the inner hole is wider or cloudy because the plastic's been heated up and then reinserted. Okay. Obviously, if you see any kind of scarring or scratching right at the seam, that's something to watch out for. Doesn't mean for sure that it was tampered with, but it's a good indication. And certainly if you see any kind of, cracks, especially cracks around where the posts are, that's going to be a big issue. If your label has any tear marks on the edges, like sort of it's been pulled out from something and slid in, that's going to be an indication. You're going to want to pull the serial number, compare it to the grader's notes, look at the book, decide, does it look like it's the same book? Also, CGC is offering to see the high-res images now, so you can sort of visually compare. That's the ways that you can protect yourself, especially on a book that might be prone to being tampered with. And books that come to mind are going to be any book with a Marvel value stamp. That's one that's going to be prone to be tampered with, because if I have a book without a Marvel value stamp, and I can I can swap it into a case for one that says it's Blue Label and it has it. Now I sell that as my Blue Label whatever, and now I have a proper one with the Marvel value stamp. I just go get that one graded again. Congratulations, I now have 2 of the book in Blue Labels, air quotes, Blue Labels. Also things with inserts, ASM 238 with tattoo inserts, anything that could be missing on the interior that you will never be able to see could be an issue. Any book, minor color touch, you swap that into a book of the same Blue Label, and congratulations, now you get an unrestored copy, and the buyer's none the wiser. So there you go. So in my opinion, CGC versus CBCS completely depends on your purpose for slabbing that book. So in summary, if you need to move that book quickly, you want to get the highest value for it, quick turnover, that's part of your business model, CGC. If you're just doing it for yourself, for personal protection of the book to make sure it doesn't get damaged any worse, or you just want a book that once it is slabbed, the actual case less tamper proof, or you have signatures that were unwitnessed, you need verified, CBCS. And then it just becomes a personal choice at that point. So hopefully CGC will address the case security issues at some point. They're still pretty keeping everyone in the dark about all that. The statements they've brought out did little to help quell any of that uncertainty. But I think that we're going to see more information from them in the summertime. So hopefully that will help give you guys some tips or some guidance on what works best from you. Make sure you like and subscribe so that we can bring you more content. Have a great day.